Mhm.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to The Caring Economy with me, Toby Usnick. Today, we have as our guest Michael Mwenso, who is the leader of the band Mweso The Shakes. He's an artist, he's an activist, and he's a recent friend who I met here in the Hudson Valley at Bard College when he and his troupe presented the Black Sound of Music, which we'll talk a little bit about later today. Michael Mwenso, welcome to The Caring Economy.
How you doing? Lovely to see you. How you doing today?
I'm very well. I'm very grateful for your time. I also am proud to tell our listeners today that we're going to do our first actual YouTube post. So not only will this appear on Spotify podcast, but we'll do the video piece and include it on a YouTube channel. So you're my inaugural video guest as well, Michael.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's see how it goes. So Michael, tell us a little bit about Michael Mwenso. I know you were born in Sierra Leone. You actually were reared in London, and then you eventually made your way to New York. Give us like the 2-minute digest of your life and how you got where you got.
Well, I was born in Sierra Leone, and my mother is Nigerian and Sierra Leone. My father was Zambian and South African, and they met in London before I was born. And sadly, my father's mother was dying, so he went back to Zambia, and my mother decided to be with her mother in Sierra Leone and have me there. So I was raised there and reared as a West African Nigerian boy under the Yoruba tradition. And we moved to Nigeria, and we lived in Ghana too for a little while because my grandmother was married to a Ghanaian before my maternal grandfather. And then my mother, met this beautiful human being called Roger Harrington, who she fell in love with, and they got married and moved to London. And sadly, a little bit after that, he died in a car crash my mother was driving. And, I was very lucky. This incredible father figure came into our lives, me and my mother's life, who was, we were in a very traumatic time of our lives. And this guy, Thomas Blofield, came into our lives. He was my mother's first landlord years before I was born in London, where she was living. And he came back into our lives, and he became really a father figure. And then a little bit after that, my mother was deported back to Nigeria. And that gentleman, Thomas Blofield, basically adopted me. And he was this unique ex-maths teacher who was retired and really loved Black music, in a certain way. And used his love to kind of inspire me to become a musician, and that's how I learned how to play the trombone and piano. And that's how I really got on this journey of being this musical artist.
And was he a Black man or
he was a white man? He was a white man. I was, to be honest, I was thinking about this very, deeply. The other day, I was talking to a friend that I'm staying in her house, and I was saying that a lot of the father figures, actually were also white. Yeah. The musical figures were Black. I was lucky to be around James Brown, and he, he was an incredible father figure. Wynton Marsalis, who I got very close with, he was like a father. But then there was an aspect of, Tom and Roger, who were also white, so it's interesting to look at your childhood and understand things about yourself as you grow.
Yeah, and certainly having anyone present and engaged with you as a child is really critical, right? Instead of behind and not attended to or not reflected.
And I wonder, because, I always was a queer, boy, but then as I evolved into a queer man, I lived with this guy, nothing ever untoward happened in any kind of way, but just that I lived as a child with one man.
Yeah, a straight white man.
You know what I'm saying? And that's different, So I'm looking at myself a lot.
Good. Before we stick with the UK, though, I want to go back because I moved all around the US as a kid with my dad's job, who we've talked about on this interview on the show when I've interviewed him. All those countries in Africa you discussed, like Sierra Leone and Zambia and Nigeria. What is it like to move within Africa as an African? Is it is it like in the United States where, oh, they might have a twang in their accent, but that's kind of it? Or are there significant differences to move within Africa from one country to the next? Or is it more about your tribes even that decide what's what?
It's kind of, yeah, there's aspects of your tribes. You know, there's the aspect of West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, all of those different, you know, entities within Africanness, you know, the tribal aspect, the countries between them, you know, what is the differences between the foods, the spice, you know. I was just, again, another thing I was thinking the other day, I was just talking about it to this friend about just in what the colonization did to the spice of different African countries. You know, me and my friend, we were just saying how, like, particularly the Kenyans and the Zambians, the food is not as funky as the West African spice, or even South African, or there's Malay, you know. So just all of those differences, you know, which is so there's it's so deep, because there's also
faceted,
you're not just African. There's a whole aspect of your shit too.
Colonial piece, and before that, are there general sort of statements that one can make about West Africa versus Southern Africa versus East Africa? Or
yeah, you can say stuff. I don't know if I'd want to say it here and let other African people hear it.
I don't want to put you in a hot spot, but I'm curious.
Yeah, you would say West Africans are like this, you know, like it was again yesterday. It's so funny. A lot of things we're talking about here. You know, I was saying, you know, we were talking about the food and the differences in the food and the spice. And then also, how is that pertain to the personalities too?
Yeah.
Of like West Africans are loud. They, you know, Nigerians, Ghanaians.
Yeah.
They're loud people. Now the Kenyans and Ugandans, they're not a Nigerian man. You know what I mean? You know, they're more reserved. They're more reserved. So I'm laughing. I just seen someone I didn't know I was going to see, and I've been trying to see for a long time. But it's actually Vuyo who you heard. The wonderful singer you heard. The sound of yeah. He's shy. He doesn't. Maybe he won't. Yeah, but we'll say. But no. So there is all of that. Yeah, I would say Ghanaians, you know, they have a different thing. I mean, I'm going to give you some unique stuff now. I mean, Ghanaians they have another aspect of how colonization hit them, that the Nigerians were lucky they kept their spirituality out of most of the colonized sheikhs things. South Africans, even that, they lost it deeper, you know, like to keep the gods who their spirituality. Nigeria, because all of that is coming from West Africa, it was really the Brazilians and the Cubans that kept the spirituality of West Africa in a way in the world that allowed it to be so present now. You know what I mean? Where a lot of the other parts of Africa, it wasn't that, they didn't have that fortunate vibe. So because I think West Africa, Nigeria particularly, kept, even though it's Christian and it's Muslim, but it's funny, it's so weird. It's like more people practice African spirituality out of Nigeria than actually Nigerians, but that's what kept it alive in the world too, you know?
Yeah.
The Yoruba spirituality. So
I believe that.
It's so what the colonization did and everything, it's just, you know, that's why I say it's like there's what the slavery did for the Afro-American, but what the colonization did for the African is another kind of thing. It isn't that thing, what happened to our brothers in this country and sisters, but
so let's take that. Let's just jump right into it. The work you're doing on anti-racism. For our listeners, first, why don't we talk a little bit about what you do in addition to music, or with the music? How you are following your purpose. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, okay, so, you know, I was a trombonist, you know, so I thought I was just going to be a trombonist, but I always knew that I was going to be more than that, because I was lucky to meet people like James Brown, and they let me go on stage with them. So I was singing, I was dancing, And then, and then meeting Winton at Marcellus at like 18, 19, and coming to New York as a young man. And then, then working at a place like Ronnie Scott's, this jazz club. Then I'm seeing myself more than just a singer, musician. Now I'm curating. Now that aspect is just, I'm booking bands. I'm seeing that I have a power that also, can empower musicians, and that Winton comes, sees this vibe that I've curated at this jazz club. He says, this is great. Come to Jazz at the Center. It gives you a job. That also teaches you about administration, even though you just thought you were coming here just to kind of like book the jazz club and sing a few tunes on a Friday, Saturday, and then Winton's like, you better be in the office 9 a.m. and come to every meeting and learn about this and learn about that. And you're rejecting it, but then you're realizing, whoa, there's other tools. So that's happening, like you're realizing Winton empowers you to see yourself more than a musician.
Yeah.
And and you're fighting it because you just want to just be doing, so. And then, Jazz at Lincoln Center was a university of how to see music as a vehicle to like do more than just off the stage. You're learning about people with money, New York society, how to talk to people. Watching Winton is a degree in itself. This man who's been able to raise this institution that's servicing jazz, that has been going on the wall for 30 years, and he's taking it out Lincoln, that in itself is like, whoa, who's figured how to do that? So that was a university that then really propelled me into where I am now, meeting, also creating this community of musicians around myself that came from Jazz at Lincoln Center, and then going out into the world of that community, creating the band Mweso The Shakes, and then Jonna, who's my creative partner, who we were all, under Winton in a certain way. We were like Winton's kids. And then me and him connect, and then we start developing and creating a way that allows us to curate shows around performing arts centers in a way, and we're doing that, it's happening. And then the pandemic comes, and it's like, and that changes. And then we start this company, Electric Root. And then this thing has allowed us to now see more of ourselves in what? Artist-led anti-racism. Now that happens because we meet two incredible, I think you saw them, we brought them on stage maybe, or we yes. honored them, Sharifa Ali and Camila Long, these incredible spirits that taught me and John how to do it. They created this unique invention to use and heal, but how does it work if artists do it? So we're not going to the like God help us HR person to teach us. This is it's a genius idea, and Sharifa and her created this incredible thing that is it just hits people in a different way, where it's like we teach you, we heal you, but we also guide you, to understanding yourself, and so. Yeah. So BARD, which was really the first step. When that pandemic hit, I realized what the impact of George Floyd will have in the world. It will make people open up the doors. It will give people the ability to say Black in a way that, me and Jono could never. So we started all the places that we played. BARD everywhere. I hit him up, said, let's talk. BARD came back. That came out with one gig. They wanted to book us, and the pandemic came and it got canceled. When the pandemic was shaking, I said, let's hit them up. I met with them. That turned into our first artist-led anti-racism, and that was, go ahead.
Before we go further on the trajectory, tell us about, like, your work is profoundly anti-racist. It's bridge building, in my view. You're definitely, like, the Black sound of music could have been seen as cultural appropriation or something that was belittling or certainly not celebratory, but in fact, as someone who always loved the sound of music, schmaltzy as it is, it was so respectful and a celebration. And it was, if you like the sound of music, you're gonna like it. And if you like jazz or scat, you're gonna like it. And everyone did. It was pure delight. And so I thought what happened in that audience that night was a real shared appreciation for music and each other in a way that was, to your point, sort of healing and revelatory, right? Like, it's not like what does the Black sound of music connote for people and what does it turn out to be? Well, everyone was smiling throughout. right?
Yeah, really using the aspect of Afrofuturism. How do we create a new world that was predominantly based in whiteness?
Yeah.
Which is a Rogers, which is that, and how do you make everyone see the real world?
Yeah. You just touched on a word we should share with our listeners. I only learned about it last year from my friends Sinead Carlino and Clive Gillinson at Carnegie Hall. But they are doing a whole festival around
We
Afro.
did it.
Right.
We were part of the festival. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what Afrofuturism is, in your view.
No, I'm with you. If you love Palmer Funkadelic, if you've seen Black Panther, if you have seen things that reimagine a world where Blackness exists with an Africanism, but also futuristic, sci-fi, different worlds of medium, mix it. That is the beauty of what Afrofuturism is. It is an energy that lets us create a new world that exists within Blackness and within a way that is able to retune and almost envision newer ways for us to live. As we create a new world that doesn't erase, because a lot of the world erases Blackness. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's what the Sound of Music was. It's like, yes, this was based in whiteness, but now if you put all of that Black art and Black culture and all the blues and how does it sound?
It was amazing.
So,
I also think there's a tenor of optimism with that, right? It's not victimhood. It's not tied to the past. It doesn't ignore the past, but it's very much about moving forward based on who we are and where we're going, right? And it's inclusive of people like me who are white.
yeah.
Even though I'm not, the necessarily an originator of Afrofuturism. It seems like that's the reason Carnegie Hall and all these art institutions in New York got behind it, because it is for all, not just for one niche. Is that fair?
I would say that we have been conditioned to only see the world in one way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Afrofuturism, really, I think for white people, it's non-threatening. Even though you get, like a director like Oliver Stone say something about Black Panther, saying, well, that doesn't that doesn't make, what did he say? He say something like, a Black superhero, I don't, like of course he's gonna say that because he never saw that, so it's also but it's also mixing all of the worlds that haven't been able to ever mix with Blackness, sci-fi, space. You know what I mean? Like, and mixing that in the world where it's like, yeah, but it should do what it's doing, in the sense that you're saying, I'm a white man. I didn't feel like it was like, and I think that's what its power is it's able to, the true spirit of, that is the true spirit of Black people and the African spirit. It's not about, it's
or surround sound, or
it's fluid.
Yeah.
Fluid.
So help because we're focused particularly on the business community. Tell us a little bit about how either your programming or your philosophy, how does a business person tap into that, a business leader? You cited George Floyd, which has hit us all pretty hard, 2 years plus on. Some brands are really stepping up on social justice issues. I've had Damon Jones on from P&G. He's been awesome.
Wow.
But I wonder, do you get hired from corporations to come?
We did some work with WNET. They asked us to do some anti-racism work. We're trying to not, institutions are great, universities, that's been the main shake, but we need it to be applied to all businesses, because we're trying to change people to be like, okay, what if CBS hires us and we do it with the artist-led energy we're doing it? You're teaching a whole new way to do this thing. That isn't the, God help us, everyone's got go to the hate, 2 weeks, anti-racist, it's horrible and it's fun, it's just not nice. This is a whole nother way. And because it is, the vehicle is music and art, it's for everybody.
Yeah. We had a couple of weeks ago on the show, Libra Clemens from Twilio, and she runs Diversity there, the tech company.
I'm
they
sure.
picture themselves as an anti-racist company.
Yeah.
They might be I'm happy to introduce you. They'd be a really
Please.
good one for you to help. They're doing really cool stuff there from the top down.
Wow.
So
No, definitely that'd be great because it's innovative, it's creative, and it's new, and it comes from a whole nother lens, and it does the work even deeper. I go in and I play Louis Armstrong, and I ask, I'll be, what do you feel? What do you hear, and how is that making you feel about this time we're in? So it's very deep.
So without revealing your secret sauce, you go and you do Armstrong, but what else happens in those sessions that you
it's also allowing, okay, so first we set up community agreements. We set up a way that, okay, a language, because that's the main, the Western language has prisoned us, so it's almost, how do we retune language in a way that allows us to see a new world? So a lot of things we work on is language, agreements that are set up, over the 4-day experience, where people start seeing themselves, putting people in groups, setting situations up for people to see themselves. We had a great one when we did it for Miami University. This was a professor of art. And he, after 2 days, he said, I got to say something that I realize everything we are teaching is from the European lens. I said, what do you mean? He says, I realize that every student has to learn to paint in that way. The way we do examinations is that you have to know all of this stuff, and it just seeing, I knew, I was like, yeah, this is it. But seeing this professor like have it, after years and go, it's just like,
the light goes on.
Yeah. So those are the things that happen.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to think that you're going to continue to flourish. Tell us a little bit about your upcoming schedule for the next year or so. Are you doing some summer things? You're on
Yeah. We're in a nice little break period because we just, I was in Burlington, Vermont for the whole of June and some of May, because we put together, we programmed the whole of the annual festival they do every year, which takes over the whole town. And that was an incredible thing for us, Electric Root, to really do, because it allowed us to kind of take, that community that you saw at Bard, but take them to a town for like 10 days and really change the artist impact in a festival. Like instead of like, normally it's very transactional, all of this stuff, music, even like, how you book musicians, it's boom, boom, bash to bash. But now what do you do now if you take 25 musicians to a town, you keep them there for 10 days? What happens then? How do they connect with the community? So that was an amazing thing for us to experiment with creativity, with our creativity and stuff like that. So, and then, we're going back out and we're doing this residency at the Cranach Center. That's in University of Champaign in Illinois, because that's what's been happening too. The pandemic allowed us to not make these experiences transactional. It allowed us now, we go to Penn State University, we go to Bard, we go to Champaign University, Illinois, and we stay there for a week. And me and Jono and maybe Sharifa Ali or Camila Long will go into classes and teach and talk about all these things around Blackness and music and art. And then the band comes on Wednesday. We might do a free show in the community. This was happening in Champaign next month. And then Thursday we do, going into schools. And then Saturday we do the big gig in the hall. So we've changed the way we want to impact with communities. So it's not just you go there one day and you're in and out. You're there for a time and you really connect.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm really happy to have Michael Mwenso on. He is the leader of the band Mweso and the Shakes. He's an artist, he's an activist, he's a friend. Michael, can you tell us, when you go into these situations, whether it's Burlington, Vermont or Penn State, you're always going to have detractors. I would like to think, well, I suspect most people are quote unquote on their best behavior and putting their best public face on. So maybe to some degree people are polite, but you must sense or actually encounter detractors who think that this with anti-racism work is hooey, or they're not a racist and they don't need to declare anything. How do you deal with that kind of negativity when it comes at you?
You have to lead with love, you have to go to that person and say, what's happening? you know, and if it's not what's happening, you have to set it up that they see, it gets revealed to them it gets revealed to them, you know. So always lead with love. You know, there's even now, it's always still, you know, you say Black music and people like, you just, you know, like we were in a meeting, we were trying to get some money from someone the other day to do some stuff, and the guy says, and he's deep. He was a guy that, you know, like loves jazz music deeply, and then he felt he just had to say, well, it's all music, isn't it? And I was like, yeah. You know, why do I have to feel ashamed of saying it's Black music, and you have to make it be something weird? But no, it's just you're gonna deal with it. You're gonna, and even through everything that's happened in, you know, the last 2 years with rape, you can even see now the veil is coming up. People are kind of sliding back.
Yeah.
You know, maybe with diversity, maybe the people are sliding back. You can see it.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm reminded of a story, if you'll indulge me for a moment. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I was at Christie's and I was running communications. I was going to London on a business trip, and on the flight over, I was seated next to Jessie Norman, and I knew instantly, and I offered to help her put her bag up. And when I put the bag up and saw the JN initials on, I said, I know who you are. I just want you to know, I'll leave you alone. I just want to say, I really admire your work and what you've done. And she said, oh, thank you so much. She was very polite. Turns out she couldn't sleep on flights. She would work throughout the night. But this elderly English couple who were retirees were across the aisle, and they overheard the conversation. And they said, oh, you're a singer. Do you sing jazz? And she said, why, yes, I do. She was so gracious. And you know, kudos to everyone on that, is how I took it, because they were genuinely interested in her. They had a lens at which they approached her, but she rolled with it. And it was just a lovely memory I'll cherish, because try and find people where they are on that sort of spectrum of caring and work with it, right? So like, you're embracing these people who might be detractors, and you say, you know, let's talk. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you also find that veil you referred to, is that also a sense that you're not alone now doing the work, that some of the other people in those rooms or in those sessions with you are there with you and willing it forward? So they'll help you engage that detractor to say, you know, actually, Guy, you're not really seeing this the way some of us are. So it's not just you, the teacher, but it's
no. And that's the great thing about, I must admit, Jonah, who you met, he is that white looking guy. He's the one who kind of in those situations tells the white people like, hey, no, you know, I'm white, and no, come on. So he really helps out. And it's great. That's why you need a white person.
Yeah, we need all hands on deck for this.
You do, but you need that person who's you need a person who looks white, but you need that person who looks white to also call out the white people.
Behavior. Yeah.
It can't just be the Blacks.
So let's stick with identity for a second. So you went to boarding school, a predominantly white boarding school in the UK.
Yeah.
What was that like?
You know, it was as I look back at it now, it was you know, I said to, it's funny, a lot of things we're talking about is things I've been talking to Sharif about. I said to her the other day, I said, I'm glad I only went there for 2 years, that type of experience, a prep, British, because I think if I would have stayed in there, you know, I don't know if I would have been this person, you know, because, you know, next is Eton and it's Harrow and who knows that trajectory. So I'm very glad I did it, because it definitely taught me a lot of, I mean, I was already independent, but it definitely gave me another kind of independence. I'm glad it was only for 2 years, because I was the only Black person there. Maybe there was another Black person there. And, you know, if you're not around it enough as a young person, your culture, the vibe, you turn into someone else.
Yeah, you get conformed into sort of what do they call it? More of an elite kind of thing or something.
Yeah, you just, you know, I have a lot of cousins who went to boarding, you know, wonderful boarding schools in England and went on that kind of journey. And, you know, because they're not surrounded a lot by people who look like them, they start to retune and change. And because it's just they're not around enough of the funk, you know? So it's real. And it's also the sacrifice of it's a deep sacrifice because it's a choice a parent has to make, a Black parent who wants to send their kids to good schools, who has the financial ability, but you don't want your children to lose their culture.
Yeah. So it's the, you want to give them the access, the opportunity, the potential.
But you don't want them to turn into like
Yeah.
a young Black boy who doesn't know who he is.
Yeah. So another question on identity. So Black, African, queer man, is there one element that you sort of identify first, or is it sort of depend on where you are, or is it all Michael Mwenso all the time coming at you?
No, he can switch. He can switch. He can, because he's lived in different places. No, he can switch. He can be very, maybe sometimes the British influence is maybe too much. I'm checking it now, and sometimes I question it, like, oh, that's because I was raised in Britain. But me, the one I want to hold up high is African Black spirit. I'm that before I was even queer. Yeah. That's what that's the one I carry. If there's one I want to carry, and people sometimes they carry their sexuality in a way where it's like it's the only thing they carry. It's just like, bro, calm down. You're a beautiful human being first, and then that's a blessing if you're gonna be queer. You know what I mean? I'm first of all, I'm lovely. I'm like this. I'm an African man and a spirit. And all those other things are blessings, So, but that's how I see myself as a Black African, as an African man.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on an earlier interview I did with my friend Adafe, who is he was a successful asylum seeking in Nigeria, and he went through some pretty traumatic things and actually successfully sought asylum after these things. And I just wonder what being a gay or
it's rough. It's rough.
Africa is like.
If I would have lived there longer, who knows who I would have turned my vibe. It was lucky that I came, when I left, because it's not easy trying to figure that out, being back home. Sometimes in some places it's really difficult. The wonderful DJ, I forgot her name, that played after us at Bond. She went through a lot.
Yeah.
To come over here.
And it leads me back to sort of bridging and using music and art. I'm very excited these past couple of years to see Lil Nas X out.
He's great. I love him.
I mean, he jumps genres, and people love him from all stripes. So I think, wow, that's a good sign. And then just this morning, last night Beyonce dropped her new album. And
I know.
one of the tracks is with, I didn't know, but this Big Frida, who is Black man.
He's great.
And pretty much, I think, in a female way, but like, how awesome. Like, Beyonce is giving her blessing. It's the second time they've collaborated. Like, I think that's what it should be, is like celebrate people and their talents, right? And
yeah, of course.
These are kind of myth busting types of personalities, I think. I hope, because music is a bridging tool, I think.
Oh yeah, it's one of the great ones. You can sort a lot of stuff out on music.
Yeah. So tell me a little about your process. How do you create?
Well, I mean, it's there's many ways. If you're creating a creative process, I mean, it's interesting when you say that, because for me, it's always happening. You're living in you're always thinking of melodies. You're always thinking of dance. You're always thinking of the show and how you can make it better. So, I mean, for me, I'm always in it, and I think maybe more for me when I'm alone is when I'm in a sense, when I can focus in a certain way, because also I have to balance, like I had a situation recently where, we've been on the road, and because I'm also like the hustler of the partnership, in the sense that, I do the emails, I, try and get the meetings, Jonah puts a lot of the other stuff together, but I also carry those hats. So it took me a while when we got home a few weeks ago to do that switch, where actually I had to meditate and pray for the focus and the humility to get back and doing the emails and get back to that side of thing, because it can be a hard transition.
Yeah.
So for me, it's being alone a lot, in the creativity, but you know, there's different sides, there's different spirits you have, because I wear a few different hats, you know.
And you have the shakes, so you have all these collaborators, which is fun. But I hear you. I some of my best thinking and creative thinking is when I'm swimming or alone.
Yeah,
And
alone.
I
Yeah.
like a busy, productive life, but there is something to be said for silence and getting to a still place.
Yeah, I love being alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a really fun afternoon with Michael Mwenso. I'm going to let him have the last word, as we always do. He is the leader of the band Mweso and the Shakes. Michael will tell us, where should we check you out? I think you're on at Michael Mwenso on Instagram.
Instagram, we're on Instagram. That's really where you can, you know, Facebook, of course, but Insta is there, and that would tell you where to find and what to do.
And michaelmwenso.com, Mwenso. So Michael, for sort of a closure, what's your sort of any pearls of wisdom, advice to either young people starting out in their careers or people who are perhaps disrupted later in their careers about leading a fulfilled life or having a fulfilled career?
Wow, that's a deep one. You know, you have to really believe, you have to really believe, you have to really believe, you have to really be strong, whatever is what you want to do, and to build, to have some sort of practice, spiritual practice that guides you on the journey, you know? That's what I would say.
Can you give an example of what your spiritual practice?
Well, I feel that I try and live in a spiritual vibe, you know. I try and deal with meditation in a way, and prayer, and just try and live in that, and try and really be, you know, strong in the power of manifestation too, you know, saying the things you want and not being afraid of it. So I try and practice that. It's hard, you know. You're not, you know, you're human. Yeah. You know, so you have to just believe and have also at least love around you, you know.
Yeah. I like that. I think of it as a sense of service. I mean, you are in service to others in the work you do, the beautiful work you guys do. And it's a practice, but you do it. I try and do it with this show in particular. It's been really wonderful having some time with you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to following you and catching up again.
Thank you.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fun time today having Michael Mwenso on from Mweso and the Shakes. Check them out. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much.